Good morning. It is Friday, the 5th of June. Yesterday, someone pointed out I got the day wrong and I said it was Wednesday, the 4th of June. It wasn't. Don't worry. It was definitely Thursday. I know it's hard to keep track during lockdown what day it is, but yesterday was 100% definitely Thursday. Yesterday was also the day that I ran the virtual launch event for A Whisper of Sorrows, my 5th J.D. Kirk book, which is out now. And that went really well, actually. There was, I don't know how many people watched it altogether. There was a 600-700, I think, at the time, and some more have watched it afterwards. That's going to be appearing on YouTube, if not already, then very soon later today. So if you haven't seen it, if you weren't able to go onto Facebook to watch it, you'll be able to watch it here on YouTube and you'll be able to listen to it on the podcast. So, best of both worlds, isn't it? Or something like that. Yesterday on the live launch, I answered a lot of questions. However, I didn't get a chance to answer all the questions, and there have been some more questions submitted during the week on the YouTube comments section. Every Friday, I want to make a Q&A session. So if you have any questions about anything I've spoken about that week, about my books, about writing, about publishing, about my health fitness quest, about living in the Highlands of Scotland, about dogs, about midges, iron brew, these are all topics I feel reasonably qualified to talk on. Not necessarily with any layer of expertise. Don't ask me about your dog's health condition because I will almost certainly have no idea. Excuse me. But feel free to ask any questions. Leave it in YouTube comments. Go to scottishauthor.com, leave it in the comments there, and I will do my best to answer them every week. So without any further ado, let's get on with today's Q&A Friday questions. Okay, so our first question is from Zachary McElroy when it was submitted on YouTube in the comments, so thank you. The question is, if possible, can you discuss the reasons behind writing the Space Team series from the point of view of an American? I didn't even realise that you were Scottish until I started trying to track down other works of yours. Thanks. I think because it was Space Team is a kind of big epic space adventure thing, and I was trying to really appeal. I did a bit of research on that, and most of the audience for that sort of thing is in the United States. And a lot of people in the United States, not all of them by any stretch of the imagination, but a lot of people in the United States will not read books about people who are not also from the United States. That seems to be the general consensus. So a lot of people in the United States won't watch British films or foreign films. And a lot of people in the UK won't watch foreign films, but they will watch American films. So I knew there was no problem with British readers reading books about American characters, but I knew there was a bit of resistance for American readers to read books about British characters. And I wanted this to be like a kind of comedy action movie set in space. And action movies generally are American. Or certainly the ones that we were exposed to in the UK, the big Marvel movies. Guardians of the Galaxy is an obvious comparison with Space Team. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is British, and Red Dwarf, which is British as well. But neither of those have been as successful in the United States as they have been in the UK. So it was really a kind of a corporate marketing plan, really, to make it appeal to an American audience, which turned out to be the correct thing to do because Space Team sells far, far more in the United States than it does in the UK. It still sells reasonably well in the UK, but the United States is where most of the readers are. So I would say it's about 80% US, kind of 15% UK, and then the rest in Australia, Canada, and various other places. So that was why I chose to make Cal Carver an American. He's from Philadelphia, a city I have been to never. That's not true. I have stopped at the airport twice. The airport's lovely. It's probably my favourite American airport that I've been to. So, well done, Philadelphia. Well done, Philly, on your airport. My daughter spilled, last time I were at the airport in Philadelphia, my daughter spilled a large Coke all over the floor, which was unfortunate. But there you go. So this question, it came from a couple of people actually. This is Laura Coatsworth, and Mark Adams also asked it. Did you choose the narrator for your audiobooks? He is brilliant. He is. Both are. I have 2 narrators for my audiobooks. Phil Thrawn is the narrator for the Space Team series and the Barry J. Hutchison books in general. And Phil is ridiculously talented. And I was really lucky when I was looking for a narrator for those books, because the Space Team series, as I mentioned, I published myself, and the J.D. Kirk books I published myself. I now have my own publishing company, and if people are interested, I'll talk about that in more detail later. But yeah, so I was in charge of finding an audiobook narrator, and I looked on Audible. Audible has a service where it matches publishers up with narrators. So I went on and looked for narrators, and I put a sample out for Audition, and I can't remember how many samples I got. I got maybe, it was low double figures, and most of them were awful, really terrible. They just didn't get it. A couple were decent, and I added them to my kind of possible list. And then I listened to a sample from Phil Thrawn, which he had sent in, and I got to 7 words into it, and I realised that he was the guy that had to do these books, that he was perfect. And I knew in that short a time that he was perfect for it. And he has been. Phil has been absolutely fantastic. And if you haven't listened to the Space Team books, or if you haven't read them, I suggest listening to them. If you have read them, I still suggest listening to them, because Phil brings a whole new element to them. And he also does outtakes at the end, because Phil's sense of humour and mine are quite closely matched. And so he cracks up quite a lot while he's narrating them, and he started putting those outtakes in at the end. So those are well worth the price of the books alone. So, and then for the J.D. Kirk books, I did the same sort of thing. I looked for some narrators. I put up a call for an audition for people to submit their stuff. I said I need a Scottish voice, and I got about 15 auditions, of which maybe 2 were actual Scottish voices, and the rest were people from all over the world attempting to do a Scottish voice. And if it wasn't so cruel, and if there wasn't regulations preventing me from doing so, I would share all those for you to listen to, because they really had to be heard to be believed. They were not even by any stretch of the imagination remotely Scottish sounding. So none of the auditions really did it for me, so I went and I looked through Audible's massive list of narrators, and I filtered, but I found someone who was Scottish, and I got a list there, and then I had 4 or 5 in the list, and then I heard Angus King, who is the narrator, and I thought, that's the guy, and I knew I wanted Angus to do it. So I approached him and I said, do you want to do this? And thankfully he said yes, and Angus has so far recorded the first 3, and then coronavirus struck, which closed the studio down, but everything is opening up again now, and Angus is getting ready to record book 4, 5 and 6 one after another. So those books, if you're a fan of the audiobooks, books 4, 5 and 6 in the DCI Logan series will be coming reasonably soon. They won't all come out at once. Book 4 will come next, and shouldn't be too long, and then 5 and 6 quickly after that. So we've got time for one final question, so we can keep this to the usual sort of length. We have Mark Adams has asked, where are we? Mark Adams. Why do you write really quickly? Noticed it with what seemed like a plethora of Space Team books coming out. I do write quickly, yes. I have always written quickly. It is, I just type dead fast. Why? Because I can, really. I always hated, if I was reading a series of books, having to wait a year until the next book came out. And I knew as a reader how frustrating that was. So as a writer, because it is within my ability to write things quickly, I like to put the books out as quickly as I can. Some of my kids' books, I wrote a series of kids' books or it was a trilogy for 9 to 12-year-olds. And those came out a year apart. Even though they were written prior to that, they came out a year apart. And I think if you're a 12-year-old when you start reading book 1, you're not going to be reading it when you're 15. You're not going to carry on reading book 3 at 15. So I think I just like putting them out, writing them as quickly as I can, but still to the best of my ability. I think, you still got to put out a quality book. People won't care if it's fast, if it's rubbish. So I write the best book I can as quickly as I can, get it edited and all that stuff, and then put it out as quickly as I can. So that's it for now. Thanks for listening to this Q&A Friday session. Apologies if I didn't get to answer your question, but there's always next week. If you are listening to this as a podcast, then check out the YouTube channel. Or go to, what's it called? ScottishAuthor.com. That's it. I should have this information written somewhere rather than try and remember it. ScottishAuthor.com. You will find all the videos there. Leave a comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. We're now on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts will be coming soon, and various other podcast hosts will start running it soon too. So follow along where you can. Thank you very much, and I will see you again tomorrow on Saturday. We're now 5% into this 100-day challenge. I've already done, it's 8:40 in the morning. I've already done 7,500 steps walking the dog. And I will do a little recap on that maybe tomorrow, talking about the health and fitness side of things. Tune in then.